Talking of the election commission itself, if we look at the entire election process as such, it has been trivialized beyond any acceptable levels. For example, the electoral rolls are no more fair. They are not transparent. Nobody can see. So people's representation, which is the core of any democracy, has been laid to rest completely. Similarly, so that on one side you have judicial activism, we talk about it. On the other side, there is judicial complete lack of sensitivity, in my view, and that is killing Indian democracy. I mean, if the court had insisted that no, there has to be continuity, and you had enough time. I mean, everybody knew that the CEC was going to retire on the 18th. It is not that something has happened suddenly. So there was enough time to decide about the new appointment. You have to establish electronically a state before the election or the voting started. And then you have to have all the transactions during the day of the voting. And then you have to predict what the end state at the end of the day should be. And that has to be matched. You cannot say that, anything other than this, they will have to justify technically. Yes, it does need to. And I'll take this opportunity to highlight one more thing. See, another problem that in these directives about verifying the EVMs is that we are missing the point of data consistency. In data science or anybody who deals with data, there are two more very important things. One is integrity of data and second is consistency of data. Now what happens is when you are giving the form 20 to candidates after the voting, that form 20 its granularity is at the polling booth level. So form 20 tells every candidate how many votes each candidate got at a particular booth. Now typically a booth has about 3 EVMs at least. So in the interest of establishing that there was no malfunction or there was no hanky-panky, what needs to be done is this same granularity has to be established at the EVM level also. You can't say that out of the 3 EVMs, we will take one. You have the rule of 5%. Fine, I understand that. But then when you pick up one EVM, you know, because of the number and the form 17C, you know exactly which booth it came from. Get all the EVMs from that booth, count all the votes in all the EVMs, add them up, check, cross-verify those with the VVPAT slips, and establish that form 20 and all the EVMs at that booth have the same number. That is where you're establishing the data consistency. Currently, we are not doing that.
Hello and a warm welcome to HW News Network, your one-stop show, truth be told, for some engaging and thought-provoking conversations. Supreme Court today fixed February 19th to hear the pleas against the appointment of the Chief Election Commissioner and election commissioners under the 2023 law, saying that if anything happens in the interregnum, the consequences are bound to follow. Now, this was a bench of Justices Surikant and N. Koteshwar Singh, and they were told by Advocate Prashant Bhushan today, who appeared for Association for Democratic Reforms, that earlier the pleas were scheduled to be heard on Wednesday, but now they have been listed on February 19th. So what does this approach by the court really speak? Is the court really serious about dealing with issues like electoral malpractices and electoral democracy? That's question number one. Question number two, does this postponement of the hearing deter the government in any way from going ahead and appointing the new CEC? Because Rajiv Kumar, the current Chief Election Commissioner, is supposed to retire on February the 18th. But keeping this issue aside, even yesterday, Supreme Court gave some directions to the Election Commission saying that no data from the EVM should be deleted, no fresh data should be reloaded. And also, the Supreme Court asked the Election Commission to bring down the cost of the EVM verification. Because you remember, the cost of the EVM verification per EVM is 47,000 rupees. So if you want to get about 10 EVMs verified, you need to have about 47 lakh rupees. That's an exorbitant amount. And that's what exactly Supreme Court told the Election Commission to bring down the cost. And now the hearing for this particular issue is scheduled on 17th of March. So I thought that we must speak about both these issues, that why this Supreme Court hearing on the appointment process of the CEC and ECs was postponed to February 19th, and the other issue where the Supreme Court has given directions regarding the data of the EVM not being deleted. So joining me now this evening is a very special guest, a technical expert, somebody who's been a consultant to the Obama administration. Madhav Deshpande joins us. Thank you so much, Madhav, for joining this evening. It's a pleasure to have you on the program. And my first question to you is regarding the postponement of the hearing, which was scheduled for today. Now that the hearing is on 19th of February and Rajiv Kumar, the current CEC, retires on 18th. So do you think that today the Supreme Court has given a window to the Modi government to appoint the new CEC? What is your view?
Very honestly, I am not neither a constitutional expert, not a political expert. I look at this entire election process from two lenses. One, that of a common Indian who feels that there's a lot at stake for every Indian in having a fair and election process in general, whether it is electronic or otherwise. And secondly, somebody who looks at things from a technology perspective, because I've been a technocrat through my life. So I do not, my comments to this question of yours would necessarily fall very short of what is probably a view from an expert on constitution or expert on polity as such. As a common person, I believe that whether it is Modi government or whether it was earlier Manmohan Singh government or any government for that matter, it doesn't really matter. The sanctity of Election Commission being independent has to be maintained. Election Commission has to also behave in such a way. See, respect is always commanded. It can never be demanded. What is happening today is that people are trying to demand respect because their behavior falls way short of what people would respect them for. Talking of the Election Commission itself, if we look at the entire election process as such, it has been trivialized beyond any acceptable levels. For example, the electoral rolls are no more fair. They are not transparent. Nobody can see what rolls are. And there have been umpteen articles that have been written about how a single person or two people can have applied for more than thousands of names to be deleted from the electoral roll, when the rule says it should not be more than 6. Again, I'm not an expert in these matters, but I've read these articles. And Election Commission seems to completely ignore this. Look at all the local body elections. Take Bombay Municipal Corporation, take Pune Municipal Corporation, take so many, Gram Panchayat elections. These elections have not been held for years now. So people's representation, which is the core of any democracy, has been laid to rest completely. And that has been, Election Commission cannot say that they are ignorant of this, because it is their duty to know about all this. It is their duty, they are duty bound, they are responsible to make sure that election process in this country remains vibrant, it remains fair, and it remains just. They are not doing.
Right. But Madhav, as a conscientious citizen, what is your view? You follow the electoral democracy very closely. You followed the election process very closely. What is your view that today, if Supreme Court postponed the hearing to February 19th, citing that one of the judges was unwell. But then there were several other provisions which rest with the court. The court could have given an interim order telling the government not to appoint the new CEC till the time at least this hearing is pending. But that did happen. So does that disappoint you as a citizen, as someone who looks forward to electoral democracy?
It does. And in fact, I've been saying, in fact, in our last conversation as well, as I remember, I've been saying that courts have been very disappointing, particularly Supreme Court has been extremely disappointing in all these matters. They haven't heard, they haven't taken a holistic view of the process. See, what is lacking entirely. I mean, I'll take this opportunity to talk a little bit of the holistic nature of even electronic voting machine based electronic system. Now we have electronic election system, and because our vote is electronic and the counting is done electronically, so in whatever happens in between is hodgepodge. That relates to the old ballot system. So all the controls that are put in place are old manual controls, and Supreme Court has to do a lot better. I appreciate that Supreme Court you can't expect Supreme Court to know the technology details, but there in a country which proudly claims that they are a superpower of software, there are enough people, I'm sure, more than enough, who would help Supreme Court to understand what needs to be done at various different times, at various different steps in the process. Supreme Court hasn't done that.
On the appointment of the new CEC looks scary now, because last time, if you remember, Mr. Goyal, when he was appointed as one of the election commissioners, the Supreme Court hearing was on, and in the middle of the process, all of a sudden, the new election commissioner was named by the Modi government. And this is what, this is why people are scared. So do you see this Supreme Court today, it seems, has given a long rope again to the government. Do you also feel the same?
Yes, I do. See, things have to be done in the timely manner as they are expected to be done. That's what I said. I mean, all these elections not being held, all the dates that we've always said, right? And that actually reflects very badly on Indian judiciary. In every language, you will have a parallel of a phrase which says, go anywhere, but don't climb the court steps. In India, this happens. I mean, every language you have a saying like this: don't go to the court, because you will never get timely justice. And whether Supreme Court accepts it or not, the fact is that we see even routine judgments that should come within, let's say, 7 days or 10 days of magistrate or judicial custody or police custody, when nothing is found, bails are not given. I mean, how many times people have spoken about it? Similarly, so that on one side you have judicial activism, we talk about it. On the other side, there is judicial complete lack of sensitivity, in my view, and that is killing Indian democracy. I mean, if the court had insisted that no, there has to be continuity, and you had enough time. I mean, everybody knew that the CEC was going to retire on the 18th. It is not that something has happened suddenly. So there was enough time to decide about the new appointment.
Right. So you feel that the courts have gone soft on the government. The court has shown lethargy as far as the electoral democracy in the country is concerned.
Yes, I do think so. Yes.
Right. Okay. Now I'll come to the issue regarding the directions which yesterday Supreme Court gave to the Election Commission, saying that please don't delete the data of the EVMs. Now, Supreme Court recognizing this fact that, okay, Election Commission is deleting the EVM data, the very acknowledgement by the court, do you think that now this exposes Election Commission's fraud when it comes to the tampering of the EVM?
Not necessarily. I am very happy that the court has said this, because we've been saying this for long. When you say that a particular system has not defrauded, you have to establish two things. Whether you are talking of EVM or any other system, even if it is a manual system, what do auditors do? Auditors check the transactions they establish a pre-transaction status, then they add all the transactions, and they establish an expected post-transaction status. And if that matches, then they say that yes, everything is good. I mean, data has the integrity. Similarly, here the process that Election Commission needs to publish as a standard operating procedure necessarily has to be technical. It cannot be an administrative process. What they've done today.
So far, the position which the court held on EVM was something which was very sacrosanct about EVM. EVMs cannot be tampered. EVMs are a pathway to the electoral democracy. But is that is that position which was taken all this while by the court seems to be shattered by yesterday's directions? It seems like an acknowledgement by the Supreme Court that yes, EVMs can be tampered.
At least the Supreme Court has started thinking on the right lines. So far, the stand Supreme Court had taken was absolutely laughable in my view, honest view, because see, there is clearly a conflict of huge conflict of interest. There is an election commission to which the technical experts committee reports. They decide and appoint the committee, and that committee is going to certify whether the EVMs are going to be are working correctly or not. The companies that make these EVMs, the Bharat Electronic and the ECIL, both are public sector undertakings which are completely and entirely controlled by the government. An employee of that company comes and verifies in courts. Nobody knows what that verification is going to be. Election Commission hasn't given any SOP of what that verification will be. Because when they want to do this, that's why I said, I gave the example of chartered accountant. You have to establish electronically a state before the election or the voting started, and then you have to have all the transactions during the day of the voting, and then you have to predict what the end state at the end of the day should be, and that has to be matched. You cannot say that anything other than this they will have to justify technically. So they haven't done this. So at least the court for the first time, as I see it,
Madhav, all this while, Supreme Court never acknowledged this fact that EVMs can be tampered, though people like you had been always saying that yes, EVMs can be tampered with, EVMs can be manipulated, but the courts never acknowledged this. But what forced the courts now to acknowledge and tell the Election Commission that please don't delete the EVM data?
See, when the SOP came out, I had written in an article in The Wire saying that this SOP does not address the basic issue of establishing that the EVMs did not misbehave. What it was doing was basically conducting a mock poll. And fortunately, for the first time, as I said, the Supreme Court seems to have started thinking on the right lines. They're saying, okay, we accept that this is not verification of the data, because if you delete the data, then there is no proof that any tampering did happen or not. Why do you need to delete the data? What has been asked to do is to establish that on the polling day, EVM did not get tampered. It did not misbehave. By deleting the data and establishing that it is working correctly today does not establish that it did not misbehave on that particular day. And that's why, if you remember, I've been giving this example again and again. If I make a phone call, for the first time it goes to the right number, the second time it goes to a wrong number, and the third time it again goes to a right number. It doesn't mean that the call in the middle, which was a wrong number, did not happen. It did happen. You have to establish why it did happen or why it did not happen. That on that particular day, on the day of voting, that is the real core of this whole direction that the Supreme Court had given. And the SOP that ECI had given completely disregarded this core and focused on establishing that, okay, it did work correctly on the mock poll, during the mock poll before elections. Now, after you have applied, we are again going to conduct a mock poll on the same machine and say that it was, it is working all right. So therefore, it did not misbehave on that day. That doesn't happen. If you're driving a car, you press brake, it works. Then for some time, for whatever happens, it doesn't brake, and then again it brakes. It doesn't mean that when the second time you braked it and it did not apply the brakes, that situation did exist.
Right. But Madhav, what would you really say now the elections have got over? I mean, the Lok Sabha elections have got over. After that, we had Haryana, then Maharashtra, now Delhi elections. Many people say the Delhi elections could also have been rigged. Now, whether the rigging was happening through EVM, whether the rigging was happening through the voters list, because lots of names were added, deleted randomly, lots of, it seems, the bylaws and the laws which could have been followed, they seem to have, just been thrown to the winds. So, what is your feeling now that how serious is this issue of EVM manipulation, and does it really need to be tackled with urgency by the court?
Yes, it does need to. And I'll take this opportunity to highlight one more thing. See, another problem that in these directives about verifying the EVMs is that we are missing the point of data consistency. In data science or anybody who deals with data, there are two more very important things. One is integrity of data, and second is consistency of data. Now, what happens is when you are giving the form 20 to candidates after the voting, that form 20 its granularity is at the polling booth level. So form 20 tells every candidate how many votes each candidate got at a particular booth. Now, typically a booth has about 3 EVMs at least. So in the interest of establishing that there was no malfunction or there was no hanky-panky, what needs to be done is this same granularity has to be established at the EVM level also. You can't say that out of the 3 EVMs, you will take one. You have the rule of 5%. Fine, I understand that. But then when you pick up one EVM, you know, because of the number and the form 17C, you know exactly which booth it came from. Get all the EVMs from that booth, count all the votes in all the EVMs, add them up, check, cross-verify those with the VVPAT slips, and establish that form 20 and all the EVMs at that booth have the same number. That is where you're establishing the data consistency. Currently, we are not doing that. I'll tell you why this is important. And there's another problem related to that as well. What happens is Election Commission has said in one of their documents that it maintains 2 copies in the control unit. When I asked about RTI, about these 2 copies in an RTI, I haven't got any response whatsoever worth mentioning. So now the point is, when these copies are made, we are not aware. If we don't know whether these 2 copies are identical or not. We do not know whether the same copies are being shown at every time or are different copies being shown. For the result, 1 copy is shown, and for verification, another copy is shown. All these things, the Election Commission has to come clean on this. And till they do, the only way to establish that is establish data consistency, so that even the candidates know that, okay, my form 20 shows me 600 votes in a particular booth, and either all the 3 EVMs put together are showing me 600. If they show me 599 or 601, I can legitimately say that there is some fraud that has happened. The Supreme Court has to.
But Madhav, looking at the way the things are happening and the manner in which Election Commission has been dealing with these pertinent questions related to EVM, you yourself said that you filed RTIs, but you haven't got very convincing answers on this. And there seemingly is an opacity around this whole issue, and Election Commission, deliberately or not deliberately, we do not know, but they don't seem to be responding to these questions. What do you think is a major reason, and are you convinced enough that EVMs are being tampered by the present regime in a big way?
See, as I said, I've been saying this, that they can be manipulated. Now I am more and more convinced that the entire process is being manipulated. I mean, as you said,
process, what does it all include?
It includes the voter list. It is not transparent. Why is it that I can't see who are the voters all over India? What's wrong? I mean,
Right.
anybody before election, before the voting day, anybody comes to me with a sheet of paper where there is my name. So if anybody says that this is privacy of information, it is laughable. Anybody on the road has those. I mean, people who I don't even know have my name in that list. So why is it not on the Election Commission's website? Election Commission modifies their documents, and there is no archival retrieval system that you can go and check the old documents. So that there's another opacity there. Third opacity is that I'll tell you. I had asked in an RTI how many, very specific question, how many booths in Maharashtra did not have phone coverage in 2024 election. And the response came to me from DOT, Department of Telecommunication, and it is a 60-page list of booths. 60 pages. Even if you assume each page has 50 names of places, that means at least 300. I had asked not the booths, the villages. At least 300 villages in Maharashtra don't have any cell phone coverage. Now, the Department of Telecommunication knows this. Election Commission and government says that we are digitized. So the left hand is not aware of what right hand is doing. Now, this probably is it probably works conveniently for all the people in power, not necessarily a particular party, everybody. And even the administrators, I mean the IS officers and MPSC or whatever you have, state commissions, for everybody who is in the power. When I say power, it doesn't necessarily mean only political power. So it's convenient because nobody is held responsible. But then I expect, that's why we expect as common citizens, the courts to stand up for us and say that, okay, we will protect our citizens. That's what the court should do. And that is what is not happening. For the first time, this time it seems that court has at least started thinking on the right lines that yes, this data cannot be deleted because it is a primary evidence and because it can probably tell us a few stories.
You do feel satisfied that at least the courts now have begun to acknowledge that there is something wrong seriously with the way the EVMs are handled?
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. And if
Right.
I were to use a poem, the woods are lovely, dark and deep, and miles to go before I sleep. So
Absolutely.
this is only a first step. There are miles.
Right. But another thing, Madhav, and that is related to the cost of the EVM verification, and regarding which, again, there is a direction by the Supreme Court to the Election Commission that please bring down the costs. Now, the very fact that the cost of the EVM verification was exorbitant, was this a deliberate process by the Election Commission to discourage any sort of verification, which can come in the way?
I mean, your guess is as good as mine. And I do believe that, yes, it is a deterrent. I mean, if somebody, and fundamentally, in my view, levying any cost is undemocratic because then you are creating a class. You're creating a class distinction. Poor will not get justice. Poor will not be heard. Somebody, a very honest person trying to be people's representative will not be heard because he or she will not have 40,000 rupees per machine. So you're saying that poor don't have access to justice. So in my view, Supreme Court should just abolish all this cost completely. Anybody and everybody should be given this access free. I mean, not people of India, but those who have contested. Because there are poor who contest. If we say that no, poor do not contest, then again we are saying that, okay, only the rich can contest. Even then there is a problematic statement.
No, but after this direction to the Election Commission regarding the cost of, regarding bringing down the cost of the verification, what do you think is going to happen? Will Election Commission come up with some fresh guidelines regarding the cost, or will they, or some notification, or will the courts now impose a cost and they will say that, no, this is the final cost? What are you expecting in terms of bring down the cost of the EVM verification?
As I said, my honest expectation would be court should just say that no, there are no costs involved at all.
Okay.
You have created the machine anyway. These engineers are being paid anyway. See, tell me why there should be a cost. The engineers are employed by the two organizations, Bharat Electronics and ECIL. The Election Commission has taken the deposits, security deposits for the election. Those from that there may be some XYZ interest that they might have got till some time, for some time, and the machines have already been made. There's nothing to be made new. So whatever is existing, that has to be examined, and that is during the duty time of those 2 engineers or 4 engineers or 6 engineers, whatever, for which they are already being paid. So except for the travel cost of those engineers, what else is there to be paid for? And why should the Election Commission not pay for their travel?
True.
Because it is Election Commission's duty to make sure that everybody feels that the process has been fair. The reason why people want this verification is because they genuinely believe that the process hasn't been fair.
Right. True.
So I don't see any reason why there should be a cost at all.
Right. Okay, now on my last bit before I wind up the interview, and that's coming back to the appointment of the new CEC. Rajiv Kumar is supposed to retire on 18th February. The next hearing on this entire petition, which was filed, is on February 19th. What happens? What is your biggest worry if the government goes ahead and appoints a new CEC before 19th of February?
Frankly, I don't know, because I'm not so much worried, because I don't think anything different would happen before 19th or later. Clearly, the panel that is supposed to recommend the name is heavily in favor of the government anyway. Even if the sole third member of the panel opposes fully, it's 2-1 anyway. So I don't know why we should worry. I mean, on date particularly, we need to be worried about the composition of the panel, which the government changed the last time, for which we need to worry, because now it's a mockery of having a panel.
Right.
So I'm not really worried about this 19th, frankly.
Okay, so we'll have to wait and watch how things unfold regarding the directions which Supreme Court gave the Election Commission yesterday. That hearing is scheduled for 17th of March. And the appointments of the CEC and the EC's hearing, which was supposed to happen today, is now slated for 19th February. So we'll have to wait and watch how things unfold. Thank you so much, Madhav, for joining on HW. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay ahead with our cutting-edge news app. Instantly access the latest shorts in just 1 minute and breaking news in just 50 words. Download now for a smarter, faster news experience.